Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have an exciting show for you tonight. Mr. Tim Pate is here to provide musical accompaniment. Welcome to 2011, Tim.
And we're here. We made it this far.
It's a brave new world.
It is.
And we will have some film clips for you. We have a hemp news segment tonight and more information that's rolling around in the world of cannabis and hemp. So stay tuned as we bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, welcome to tonight's hemp news segment. Our first story this evening is out of Oakland, California. Oakland City Council members voted last week to suspend plans to license and tax industrial-sized medical cannabis producers. The decision came after federal officials stated that the Justice Department of the United States government would likely pursue criminal or civil litigation against local marijuana growers as well as Oakland City officials if they move forward with their licensing plans. Oakland City Attorney John Russo had also issued a legal opinion saying the plan violated the state's medical marijuana laws and could place city council members in legal jeopardy. The Oakland City Council members voted 7-1 to withdraw the licensing ordinance, but may revisit the issue later this year. They had licensed several warehouse-sized facilities to produce dozens of pounds of marijuana each year, and so they pulled back on that. Also from California, legislation that reduces the penalty for minor marijuana possession from a criminal misdemeanor to a civil infraction in the state of California took effect this week on January 1st in the state of California. Signed by outgoing Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in October, Senate Bill 1449 amends the California Health and Safety Code so that an adult in possession of 28.5 grams of marijuana for non-medical purposes is reclassified from a criminal misdemeanor to an infraction, punishable by no more than a $100 fine, no court appearance, no court costs, and no criminal record. The new law took effect on January 1st, 2011. It's similar to existing laws in Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Nebraska, Oregon, and New York, where private non-medical possession of marijuana is treated as a civil, non-criminal offense. Earlier this week on Wednesday, the 6th, the U.S. Senate confirmed Michelle Leinhart by unanimous consent to head the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, or the DEA. Ms. Leinhart had served as interim director of the agency since November 2007. President Barack Obama had nominated Leinhart in February to serve as the agency's permanent director. Numerous drug policy reform organizations, including NORML, DPFA, and THCF, had opposed Leinhart's confirmation, arguing that her actions as interim DEA administrator were contrary to the Obama administration's pledge to allow science, rather than rhetoric and ideology, guide public policy. For example, Ms. Leinhart oversaw dozens of federal raids on medical marijuana providers and producers. These actions took place in states that have enacted laws allowing for the possession and use, distribution of marijuana for medical purposes, and are inconsistent with an October 19, 2009 Department of Justice memo recommending federal officials no longer, quote, focus resources on individuals whose actions are in clear and unambiguous compliance with existing state laws providing for the medical use of marijuana, end quote. Needless to say, we're very unhappy that Ms. Leinhart has ascended to the head job as administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration. We hope it doesn't signal a turn in drug policy for the worse here in the United States. State officials have made a public draft in Arizona regarding the implementation of Arizona's nascent medical cannabis program. In November, a majority of voters decided in favor of Arizona's Proposition 203. making Arizona the 15th state to allow for physician-supervised use of medical marijuana. The public has 3 weeks to comment on the proposed regulations, which must be finalized by April 13, 2011. Full text of the draft rules are available online at azcecentral.com. And public comments may be submitted to the State Department of Health Services from the link above. Under the rules, state officials may license only one nonprofit medical marijuana dispensary for every 10 existing pharmacies. Neither state-authorized patients nor their caregivers may legally cultivate marijuana under the law if they reside within 25 miles of an operating dispensary. So that law will go into effect in April. From the Netherlands. Dutch lawmakers have the legal authority to prohibit non-residents from patronizing coffee shops that openly sell small amounts of cannabis. Europe's highest court ruled last week coffee shops have operated in various Dutch cities since the early 1980s. The European Court of Justice decided last week that Maastricht city officials were within their rights to prohibit so-called drug tourists from visiting local coffee shops. Maastricht is located in the southern part of the country in close proximity to the border of Belgium and Germany. Government officials in recent months have threatened to impose regulations mandating that Dutch coffee shops, which sell cannabis to adults, become members-only clubs for legal Dutch residents only. The European Union Court determined that banning foreigners from the Netherlands coffee shops constitutes a measure capable of substantially limiting drug tourism and consequently of reducing the problems it causes. The Dutch court reasoned that officials could legally impose the ban because marijuana is illegal throughout most of Europe. A new study shows that the administration of cannabidiol, or CBD, a non-psychotropic component of marijuana, reduces various symptoms of diabetic cardiomyopathy, the weakening of the heart muscle, according to preclinical data published online by the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. An international team of researchers from the United States, Switzerland, and Israel assessed the effects of CBD on myocardial dysfunction, inflammation, oxidative nitritive stress, cell death, and interrelated signaling pathways using a mouse model of type 1 diabetic cardiomyopathy. The authors reported, quote, CBD attenuated myocardial dysfunction, cardiac fibrosis, oxidative and nitritive stress, inflammation, cell death, and interrelated signaling pathways. These results, coupled with the excellent safety and tolerability profile of CBD in humans, strongly suggest that it may have great therapeutic potential in the treatment of diabetic complications and perhaps other cardiovascular disorders by attenuating oxidative and nitritive stress, inflammation, cell death, and fibrosis, end quote. Previous clinical data published in 2006 in the journal Autoimmunity reported that the administration of CBD in mice significantly reduced incidences of diabetes compared to controls. Cannabidiol has also been shown to be protective in an animal model of other cardiac diseases. Full text of this study: cannabidiol attenuates cardiac dysfunction, oxidative stress, fibrosis, and inflammatory cell death signaling pathways in cardiomyopathy. Is available online for the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. That's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. Back over to Mr. Tim Pate.
That last one was a mouthful.
It was. It called on my limited verbal skills in
I wouldn't say
medical
that,
terms.
It was a mouthful. There was definitely a lot of big words there.
Yeah.
And you know, when you think about it, why in the world would they want to change all of the existing conditions in the Netherlands right now? Because they get tons. I mean, there's a couple of 100,000 English.
Well, there's a new Dutch government.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a conservative national.
They're going to be poorer
government
too, very much
in the
sooner
Netherlands
than they
that
wanted
wants
to be.
Go backwards, and so
That's what they're doing.
They're trying to do that. Obviously, in the city of Maastricht, they've been able to do that
Right.
Judicially.
Right.
The question is whether they'll be able to ban marijuana coffee shops throughout the Netherlands, and that hasn't been proven yet.
No, but they could ban the foreigners from attempting it. Attending.
Yeah,
them,
and they're talking about that,
Yeah.
but they haven't got it pushed through and finalized yet.
They're trying. Shame on them for even trying. I've been to Amsterdam and I've enjoyed it very much, and I can see
me too.
that it would just run a really good thing. And so they ought not to do that. That's how I feel, and I'm going to stick with it.
Well, I'll back you on that, Tim.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Let's play some music. Watch the pretty pictures, folks.
Tim Pate. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Great little segment there. We are taking your phone calls tonight. It is the 7th day of January, 2012, and you can call us here in the Portland area at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your calls right up to the top of the hour. And if you have a question about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, then you can call us. Also, you can watch us live online at that website right there, ustream.tv. And if you're watching there, you can click in the chat box, type in a question, and there's a good chance I might be able to answer it here on the air through the magic of text messaging.
That is magic.
Yeah,
It's just
one of the many growing technologically magic things going on out here.
There are so many things going on right now.
It's true.
Obviously, there is. You have your finger on the pulse right now. You've been involved in quite a few different things just since.
That's true.
Since we've
I've
seen
been
you
really
last.
blessed and working more, and went and spoke at KushCon just after our last live TV show back on December 17th.
And that was in Denver.
In Denver, a
And tell us
huge
about
conference in the middle of downtown Denver in the convention center, the very same place the Democratic Party had the national convention nominating
good.
President Obama back in 2008. And it was huge. The top 2 floors of the Hyatt Regency Hotel were named as cannabis-only floors.
Oh, wow.
And you could use cannabis real openly in there. They didn't ask for any paperwork about it either. The maids came in and out. Nobody was bothered. It signaled a whole new breakthrough. It's right across the street from the big Denver Convention Center, which is huge.
Yes.
That's just one thing. We'll go on to more here in just a moment, because
That's
we
exciting.
do have a lot of exciting developments. We have a caller, though. Welcome to our show, caller.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good.
Well. How are you?
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. I haven't smoked weed since 2010. It's been a whole year.
I just, me either. I've only vaporized it this year so far.
Okay, well, I was calling to talk about the marijuana cafes here in Portland.
Sure.
And, I don't understand how to go about getting inside of one. You have to have a medical marijuana
You've got to have a
permit.
medical marijuana permit
That's
to
correct.
be able to get into those medical cafes. That's how they're able to operate legally, because they're members-only institutions. So you have to have a medical marijuana permit from the state of Oregon to be able to legally use marijuana in those
That's a lot
places.
of fucking bullshit. Yeah,
Well, it should be legal, and we're working to make it legal. I'm not operating any of them, but you know, it's a high-risk business being in those dispensaries. There's a lot of risk involved, and what they're trying to do is just minimize some of their risk. So that's the situation.
The best thing for us to do is to legalize it.
And that's what we're doing. You know, we have a bill. If you go to our portal to the internet, hemp.org, hemp.org, and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see our Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition to completely legalize marijuana. It will allow adults to grow their own. It will, without a license or without a permit, without any restrictions, as long as you aren't selling it. It'll also allow people to get a license if you want to grow it and sell it, and then it can be sold to adults through state licensed stores. And then the taxes that would be raised on it, 90% would go to the general fund, 2% would go to promote industrial hemp, fiber, food, and fuel crops. It'll also allow 7% to go to help people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol to get the treatment they need, and set up the final 1% to set up an education program, a realistic, comprehensive drug education program for kids in school. So we think we've crafted a good bill. We've crafted a bill specifically to overcome the federal hurdles and to comply with the international treaty requirements, so it'll be upheld in federal court. So to find out more about that, you can go to that website, cannabistaxact.org, or go to our portal, and you can get right there through hemp.org, hemp.org. If you have a question for us tonight, please refrain from offensive language. You know, we're on television, and so the whole reason we have a little disclaimer at the top of the show is only because of callers calling in using inappropriate television language.
And since we're live, that can happen occasionally.
Yes, it does, and that's why we have a disclaimer on there. It kind of limits our ability to replay in some markets. With that disclaimer, we're only able to replay after 11 o'clock p.m. in some markets. But we have to have it there in the Portland area if we're going to take live phone calls, because you never know what a caller might say.
That's true. You know, I knowing that there's 15 states that have now,
and the District of Columbia,
and the District of Columbia, and the city of Columbia, Missouri, that have decided that legal marijuana is appropriate for people who need it. How does the DEA justify their continuing position?
Well, it's 90% of their business, so they're in it big for existential reasons, because without marijuana, 90% of their business disappears. So it's all about jobs and money and power. It's not about drugs. I mean, they lie.
Right.
It's based on lies and misperceptions and denial of scientific reality.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're here about, is to educate everyone about the lies that the federal government tells to keep marijuana legal, and to help regulate cannabis sales legally to adults and restore industrial hemp to its rightful place in our economy. As soon as we legalize marijuana, very soon thereafter, we will have our cars driving on hemp fuel, our clothes made out of hemp fiber, our paper made from hemp fiber, and all those things. So there.
As it should be. You know, I do love my country, but I do have questions
it's like
about
that
my
Jackson Brown song. You know,
That's
I'm
right.
a patriot and I love my country, but my country, because my country is all I know. But we are working to change it and to be activists. So if you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4448. Well, gee, there's so many different things going on. What's the next exciting thing we can tell people? How about the 4th of July weekend? You know, that's a big, exciting
It's going to be big.
It's big, folks.
It's
big.
It actually is. We've got a 3-day opportunity.
That's right. Toots and the Maytals, the godfather of reggae, the man who back in 1963 had his first big hit when he was 18 called Do the Reggae, and that is where the word reggae comes from. The godfather of reggae, Toots of Toots and the Maytals, will be doing a series of 3 benefits for us. The Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF, will be in Portland on Saturday, July 2nd. We'll be in Eugene, or actually not Eugene, we'll be in Redmond at the Deschutes County Fairground next to Bend on Sunday, July 3rd, and we'll be in Eugene on the 4th of July doing benefit concerts for our Hemp Stock Festival and the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition drive to legalize marijuana. And we will be having petitions and signings available all in conjunction with that to help put the marijuana initiative on the ballot.
So that you'll be hearing more about that as the opportunity comes up, and
That's
we
right.
know exactly which venues we're going to be at here in Portland and in Eugene. Although we've already determined that the Deschutes County Fairgrounds is the appropriate place to do it up there in
That's
Redmond.
right.
So
we're going to be on
we're very excited about
County
this opportunity.
Fairgrounds there in Redmond. We have a couple of questions. One from a studio audience member. Go right ahead, studio
Hi.
audience member. Howdy.
I believe, and I'll just say this is my opinion,
Okay.
that it is much easier for the federal government to go after sick people who are trying to get over their pain issues than it is to go after hardened criminals.
Amen. Amen. I agree with that.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I wish
Yeah.
I wish it weren't true, but I
Yeah.
do agree with
they
you.
are
that,
often concerned about their safety, and they know when they're arresting people around marijuana, 99.9% of the time they are safe.
Quite frankly, I feel like that is what empowers us to continue doing what we're doing, because I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for the people who are very sick and can't speak for themselves,
The
or
children
can't march
whose
for
parents
themselves.
are in jail.
Exactly.
The families destroyed, the
Oh.
poor fellows who died in prison over marijuana that they took to ease their suffering.
Those
So
who are in
that's
prison
why
right
we're
now,
here.
there's just too many of them. There are too many people in this country in prison for this offense, and that's absolutely wrong in my mind. And we're talking about a moral issue now that's beyond anything I've ever
And
thought this government would
The
ever be
plant
involved
that
with.
produces more fiber, more fuel, and more food than any other plant on
That's
our
correct.
planet. The most biomass of any plant in the temperate and cooler climates. We have another caller from out there in video world. Welcome to our show, caller.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
Hi. We have a burning desire to know the part that marijuana plays in nature. Number one, before, early humans going back, why does marijuana have a skunk-like smell? Is that to repel? Is it
Well,
to
not
attract?
all strains have that. That's specific strains. Some of them have a spicy smell. Some of them have a lemony smell. It all depends. Not all of them are skunky. So that's a factor of the aromatic hydrocarbons, also known as the terpenes. I like to call it our friends, the terpenes. And those terpenes have a lot of antioxidant properties that stop diseases and stop cancer and fight cancer.
So what part does it play? Let's say, is it trying to attract animals to eat the plant so that,
I think
like
just
a
the opposite. It's there to repel some insect predators.
That's what I think too. I was going to bring that up. That's what I feel about it.
And the resin also, cannabis originated in the high Himalayas, where there's a lot of radiation, ultraviolet radiation, and so the resin protected the seed heads and the seeds from ultraviolet radiation.
Well, now, is the strategy for the plant to, if an animal eats it, is the strategy for the animal to be relieved of pain or to have a
It's
a
difficult to know.
euphoric
There's a
experience, or-
book out there called The Botany of Desire by this fellow Michael Pollan, and it was made into a 2-hour public broadcasting special that focused on several crops and how they've interplayed with humans and society and economics. They looked at potatoes, they looked at tulips, they looked at cannabis as one of them. I think I forget the fourth, but might have been tomatoes. But that they talk about how it's a symbiotic relationship where the plant, through its resin production, attracts humans for its medicinal and psychological capabilities, and that's spread its cultivation, where it's spread out of the high Himalayas and it's cultivated all around the world. And So the plant's using us, and are we using the plant? That's one of the issues addressed by this treatise, Michael Pollan's The Botany of Desire. It's an excellent video as well. I'd say it's probably the best, most scientifically accurate and up-to-date video out there on cannabis therapeutics and its actions on the cells. So I would go on the internet or find it out there and watch that. Well, or get the book. It's a great book too. I read it years before it was a video.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention one other thing. I know there's a tradition of musicians and artists and creative type people using marijuana to enhance their art, their music, and I know this goes back through history, quite a long ways back. I wonder if the door will ever be open for individuals like that to specifically maybe, you know, be allowed to use marijuana for those reasons.
Well, I think so. You know, we are actively working to make it completely legal. So
just go to almost any green room behind any major concert, and you'll find that that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
That indeed they do allow them to smoke a little bit back there because it helps them on stage. I don't know a band that doesn't
smoke it before they go on, or very few do. I mean, Willie Nelson obviously smokes a couple. I've smoked out with him before major shows on more than a dozen occasions.
Well, I think there's a lot of value there if it's used responsibly. I think there's legitimate value there.
I'm in favor of. I'm against misuse and abuse. I totally am. So I think we're in total agreement there. There is value to that, and in the proper environment, it would be very useful.
And I wanted to tell you one other thing. We have named you guys the Medma Swamis.
What was that? The Medma Swamis?
Medma Swamis.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll take that as an honor and compliment.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for your good questions.
Good work.
We will do that.
Good night.
Thank you. And so, yeah, we have Toots and the Maytals coming to do a big 4th of July Freedom concert and raise funds for our
tour, really, a 3-city tour.
A 3-city tour, benefit tour for our Hemp Stock Festival and for our move to legalize marijuana. And finally, for one other big announcement here before we go to our video roll-in here,
going for that.
We have turned in 2,200 sponsorship signatures to the Oregon Secretary of State. We needed to turn in 1,000, so we turned in about 2,200 sponsorship signatures for the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, and we await the draft ballot title sometime this month, in the month of January. And technically, we could have those petitions hit the street by March, and at the very latest, we'll see them on the street by May. Definitely before our big festival on the 4th of July with Toots and the Maytals. So stay tuned. We have a phone call. Let's take the phone call. Hey, caller.
Yes, I was curious. Both my wife and I are patients and growers, and I'm curious if we are both able to have an additional 3 patients apiece.
Yes, you're each able to be caregivers for yourself and 3 other people. And you can locate your gardens together. You don't have to worry about that.
Oh, okay. And so we don't. And for
just make
my
sure
wife
you don't
and
grow
I,
more than 6 plants per patient for in the budding stage, or larger than 1 foot tall or 1 foot wide.
Yeah, keep your numbers good.
Yeah.
Keep numbers good and keep them labeled so that they're individual.
Yeah. Yes.
That definitely will help if you're ever called into question.
Yeah, that's what I was curious also is keeping.
The law doesn't require that each plant be labeled, but it does require that you have less than 6 plants larger than 1 foot wide or tall or budding, and less than 18 plants smaller than that per Oregon medical marijuana patient. It's a little different up in Washington. It's 15 plants. Changes from state to state.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We have a little film clip we're going to roll, and then we'll be back to take more of your calls, questions, and count down the rest of our hour. So stay tuned.
The 60s rising tide of social change eventually swept in and altered the course of Jack's life. In 1967, he and his wife divorced. One day, a couple of years later, a new girlfriend asked him a question.
She said, Jack, have you ever smoked marijuana? course not, no. I never smoked marijuana. She said, well, I think you should. I was feeling sensations that I didn't even know a human being could experience. And I said, why is this illegal? And she said, she doesn't know. I began to hear the protesters about the war in Vietnam, and their words had real meanings, textures. They weren't just talking about, I don't want to fight because I'm a coward, which is the way I thought of it in my ignorant or brutish way before.
Peace and freedom became big issues for Jack. So did the environment. But as the 70s began, the journey of Jack Herer from Goldwater Republican to Emperor of Hemp was only just beginning. Jack's transformation gained some momentum in 1973 when he satisfied a lifelong urge to write. He and a friend co-authored a little cartoon book about marijuana titled simply Grass. Much to his surprise, Grass became an underground hit, selling about 35,000 copies. Almost overnight, Jack gained a reputation as an authority on marijuana.
And now everybody thought I knew all about pot. I knew every little subtle thing. And I still didn't even know if I ran across a marijuana plant growing in a field, I wouldn't even recognize it.
And the grass, come sit with me in the grass.
Like millions of other Americans back then, Jack knew nothing of marijuana's history and had no idea that marijuana was actually hemp, the non-intoxicating but still very much illegal variety of the ancient Cannabis sativa plant. But as sales of his little grass book raised his profile, strangers began to come up to him with intriguing bits of information.
They come up to me and say, Mr. Herer, do you know that they used to make paper from marijuana? Some other kid would come up to me and says, do you know that they used to make all their sails and clothes out of marijuana?
The idea that it had other uses, that you could make paper out of it, that you could make cloth out of it, you could make cord out of it, you could make oil, you could make medicine. Those had never occurred to Jack, and boy, did he take that idea and run with it.
Jack was amazed to discover hemp's deep connection to mankind. For over 10,000 years, hemp was undeniably our most useful plant. Our ancestors depended on hemp's exceptionally strong fiber, cellulose-rich pulp, and highly nutritious seeds. The plant was cultivated and used throughout history for food, clothing, fuel and medicine, as well as for sails, rope, shelter, and paper. In colonial America, hemp was not only legal, but essential to survival.
Washington planted hemp at Mount Vernon in the 1790s while he was president in an attempt to start a home industry so that the United States would not have to depend on Italy and on Russia and on England for their hemp fiber. This was just after the Revolution, and the United States was trying madly not to have to rely on foreign countries for any products.
Armed with this new knowledge, Jack set out to persuade the marijuana reform movement to join him aboard his new hemp bandwagon. But to his surprise, nobody got on, not even the usual suspects.
Many of us thought that Jack was perhaps too focused only on hemp, most of us were only focused on let's stop arresting smokers, and we sort of thought the hemp issue was a secondary issue and maybe not as important, and we weren't even sure there was a constituency out there that cared about it.
The message, as well as the messenger, turned people off.
When he first talked about hemp, to me in particular, I was very resistant because I thought of it as being just an excuse to legalize marijuana.
He tended, in his enthusiasm, to overstate the case a bit. And in so doing, sometimes the rest of us were embarrassed by that. We felt like it might undermine all of our credibility.
He would go on and rant about, hemp and how it was important and how he found this and found that, and I paid little or no attention to him because he has a tendency to rant and rave about a lot of things, if you know him.
I suspect I'm probably one of those people that refused to return Jack's phone calls.
Going to a party, meet me on after school. Well, going to a place where the jive is really cool.
There was one person who did accept Jack's ideas back then. An easygoing marijuana activist named Ed Adair could see the sense to what Jack was saying. Adair, known to everyone as Captain Ed, owned 2 popular Los Angeles head shops.
I'd heard he'd sold 12 of the grass books. So I went over there and introduced myself, and he looked at me and he says, I've been selling the hell out of these books. But he says, are you sure you're okay you smoke pot? Because what I walked in with was a white plastic jacket with my polyester pants.
Jack followed Captain Ed's example and traded his polyester suits for jeans and t-shirts. The two became inseparable friends, and over the years they collected hundreds of thousands of signatures for various legalization initiatives in California.
Our good friend Jack Hare.
That is the history. I first met Jack Hare. I went down to L.A. back in summer of 1982, a good 28 and a half years ago, and was trying to get on video game shows during a break at Evergreen State College because I'm quite trivial and can answer those meaningless questions.
Okay.
And so first couple days I stayed in a hotel. Then I stayed in a campground, and then I looked in my Overthrow magazine. I was a contact in the Yippee magazine out of New York from Evergreen State College as a contact. So I looked up L.A., and there were the Reefer Raiders. So I called the Reefer Raiders, and it was Captain Ed Adair. And I went after a few days and stayed about 2 weeks in the blacklight room in the back of his shop on Van Nuys Boulevard. And just before I left, I got together and met Jack Hare, and then I ran into him again 2 years later when we both moved here to Oregon to help the Oregon Marijuana Initiative.
Right.
So there's just a little bit of history there for you.
In the making.
We have a caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to our show.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Very good. How are you tonight?
Howdy.
Very good. It's not quite freezing here anymore, so it's a little better.
Thank goodness for that.
That's true. It's true.
How are you doing tonight, Rod?
Good. So I noticed before Christmas, several people were calling in looking for growers and having trouble with growers and getting a good grower.
Typical problem.
Yep. And I noticed sitting next to you was George Cervantes, who has an excellent book.
He's a good grower. Yeah,
On
and his
how
book,
to
I've been recommending his book for many years. In fact, I remember it was about 7 or 8, maybe 9 years ago, they were talking about how bad cable access was on the local news. And they showed this fellow who did a nude television show, Jim Spag, and then they showed me. And the only quote they showed from me is me saying, I recommend the book Marijuana Indoor Horticulture by Jorge Cervantes. That was the clip they used to say that cable access is a bad thing.
And there we are.
But yeah, we were proud to have George Cervantes on the show, and we had Danny Danko the following week, the High Times cultivation writer, and we're looking forward to working together with them more and having them back on the show. And Ed Rosenthal as well. We've been plotting some things together with Jorge Cervantes and all these folks about cultivation and seminars. And
we have some exciting guests that are going to be coming on our show this year. There's no doubt about that.
That's right.
We've got plans, so stay tuned.
So, yeah, I was thinking this the average person, if they read those books, just one or two of them, and
They can
I
learn
was
what they
thinking-
need to know.
yeah, if you could take care of a dog or a cat or
Yeah.
a house plant, you could take care of your six babies.
You're right.
It's going to make you healthy.
Yeah, and the best thing about Jorge Cervantes' book is it's modular. If you need to make cuttings, you can read the 2 or 3 pages about cuttings. If you're transplanting, you can read the 2 or 3 pages about transplanting. If you got problems with the plants and your leaves are looking sickly, you can read the 3 or 4 pages of color diagrams that show you what various nutrient deficiencies and insects look like and things like that, so you can diagnose your sick plant too.
Right.
So I still recommend it after all these years. And Jorge is from right here in Portland. He used to have a horticulture store out at 100th and Foster Avenue.
Yeah. Yep. You don't have to read the whole book either to get started. I just tell people, get started.
Yeah.
And,
good point. Thanks for your comment.
Yeah, it's important for people to know that, because there's a lot of folks who are just starting on the program. A lot of people come to the clinics on a regular basis. They don't have any idea of what to do yet. They don't have any sources, and it's a difficult problem. The way we have crafted our law here in the state of Oregon, it doesn't leave us very many options for medicine. So it's good to know how to do it yourself.
There are a lot more options out there.
There are now, but they weren't at the beginning at all.
That's true. We're seeing, I've been interviewed a few times over the past few weeks by the folks at Willamette Week, and they're known for a kind of hard-hitting journalism and generating smoke and stuff. But they're going to have a story come out, I think it's this week, on the proliferation of new dispensaries all around our state. So stay tuned for that one. We'll be talking more about it next week.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
yeah, things are going good. You guys are doing awesome, and keep it up. And I'll see you next week.
All right, thanks.
Right on.
Thanks for your call.
Bye.
If you're out there and you have a question for us tonight on the 7th of January, 2011. Show, what is it, 570? Something like that.
67, 68, close
Something
to
like
it.
that. 67, okay, 567. Then call us at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448.
Or if you're Ustreaming, which they can, you can contact us that way as well.
Click on the chat box and type in a question in there, and we'll try to answer it here on the air. So.
And I know a lot of people will catch us on YouTube, and we're really glad of that as well. It's a nice thing to know, to turn on there and see, wow, lots of folks have been watching. So thank you very much, everyone out there who watches us on a regular basis. We appreciate it a lot.
It's true. It's true. And our main venue, of course, being cable access. Now we're on in 15 different cities, including Seattle, Denver, Detroit, Boston, and 12 other smaller cities. So we appreciate you. They don't play live in those venues. We ship the DVDs off to them. So
I believe we're going to be picking up a new market in Montana here very
I
shortly.
do believe we're scheduled to go on in Missoula, Montana here.
So picking up another state, and that's very exciting.
Place. So those are the exciting announcements here. The big thing happened with KushCon. It was a huge conference in Denver back on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of December. That was mainstream and in the public eye, and
it's true. Well, I know that there's going to be some changes this year, potentially in the wind with Seattle Hemp Fest. I'll know more. I've got a Seattle Hemp Fest core staff meeting this next Tuesday night. We'll probably know a little bit more about the potential of us moving to the Seattle Center.
You know, I've heard that isn't going to happen. I
Okay.
interviewed Stephanie Bishop, who's on the board, and she said that there were some conflicting events at the Seattle Center.
So that has been decided. Okay,
they're
so
working
we're gonna be down on the waterfront again.
They're working toward doing it again at Myrtle Edwards Park and looking at future possibilities to book the
Well, then
Seattle
it's settled.
Center.
Good. Because there were some construction issues with Myrtle Edwards Park this year,
Yeah,
and they
there
had to
still
decide whether they were going to delay those or continue with them, you know,
Right.
and interrupt our event, or what was going to happen, which was what prompted them to possibly send us over to Seattle Center.
The Seattle Center is a better venue, but it's just already, there's some prior commitments there during that period.
There you go. Well,
we
settles
have
that.
another caller on the telephone, so welcome to the show, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Howdy.
There you are.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you a question. I have two autoimmune diseases. I've had ulcerative colitis since I was 19. I'm 55. And I have Hep C. And
Oh,
so I
man.
wanted to know, and I wanted to know, I can get marijuana. I can get a card.
Yes, you
Yes,
definitely
you
can. And we have doctors who'd be ready to help you here in the area of Portland, Oregon, where we film live, and throughout the United States, from sea to shining sea. So if you're interested in finding a doctor who can help you, you can call us. I'll give you that number when you're ready.
All right. And but I wanted to ask, because of my immune system attacking me, would this be? I do get tremendous sometimes nausea, and
Right.
if if I should take these pills for it, it would take so long that the thing would
No,
pile me
cannabis has been shown to be the solution. Autoimmune diseases, recent studies show, are caused by a lack of the endocannabinoid anandamide. That's what the body's natural cannabinoid system, and it's one of the primary modulators of the whole neurology, your whole body's nervous system. So it modulates all the other neurotransmitters used by your nervous system. And so autoimmune diseases, everything from IBS and Crohn's disease and colitis and rheumatoid arthritis, those have been shown to be caused by a lack of the body's natural or endogenous cannabinoids. So supplementing your body with plant-based cannabinoids will return your body to homeostasis and fight those diseases. So you really do need to be taking cannabis orally. It's not the THC in cannabis that's the primary medicine for most of the conditions involved with medical marijuana. THC is responsible for the high associated with marijuana. It also helps with nausea and an appetite stimulant and a number of psychological conditions. But it's CBD or cannabidiol that's the primary medicinal compound for autoimmune diseases, for spastic conditions, neurodegenerative diseases like MS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. It's been shown to be useful in chronic pain and neuropathic pain conditions, glaucoma, as a cancer drug that kills tumors selectively. So it's shown promise in all autoimmune diseases, and you should be taking cannabis orally. Even the leaves contain a large amount of CBD. They don't have much of the THC. THC is mainly in the flowers. So you can take a leaf compound or even...
Better to take a lot of that and so you're not getting totally bombed out. And then,
No, you won't even get high at all because it doesn't have THC. You should take a capsule or two, 00 size capsules made with the leaf. You just take the leaf and let it dry out for about a week. Then you cook it at a low heat. And what that does is it decarboxylates it or removes the carbon dioxide molecule from the cannabinoid molecule, and that makes it medicinally active. And by taking it that way orally, you won't get high at all. In fact, it'll even stop you from getting high if you smoke the marijuana, because the CBD would go into the receptor site for the THC. So if you take a big dose of CBD and then smoke marijuana, you won't get high.
Wow. Okay, one more quick question, and that is you were speaking about the evaporator or whatever. I've heard about that, but
The vaporizer.
I know you talked about,
And that's a good delivery system for THC and a little bit of CBD. Studies have shown that vapor from a vaporizer, and I use the Volcano, and there are bunches of them out there, but the vapor is 98% THC, 2% CBD, and 1% each of two different aromatic hydrocarbons or terpenes.
Wow. And so how much does one of these units cost, though?
You can get, you can make one out of a heat gun like you use in a hardware store, and you can get the price down to about $100. But the good German volcano that I use cost about $500.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it makes your medical marijuana go a lot farther too. And so after you vaporize it, you can still eat it for the CBD.
I'll do a little research on this, and I really greatly appreciate your help and your time for talking to me.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. Good luck with
You
your
guys have a
conditions.
good
I
night.
really strongly recommend that you try eating cannabis 3 times a day and making a compound out of the leaf if you don't want to get the high, or the flowers if you do. The leaf is a lot cheaper than the flowers too.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
You
have
bet.
a
You're
good
welcome.
night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You too. Good night.
Yeah, good luck with him.
Yeah, if you have a question or call out there, well, we got a few minutes left here. We might be able to squeeze in 1 or 2 more calls. Call us at 503-288-4448. We have a studio audience member who has a question here, so welcome to our show.
Hi there, Tim. Hi there, Paul. It's
Good
good to
evening.
see you guys again. It's been a
You
little
too.
while.
Welcome.
I had a question that I was talking to my caregiver earlier about, and just kind of an idea. We were thinking about installing an automated watering system, and
I've used those in the past.
the idea came up of regularity of watering. And I know in the past with succulents, specifically aloe, I've found that keeping the root system moist is something that in some cases can do harm. I'm wondering, and I know I've had other friends who have done their own medicinal gardens as well as typical traditional gardens that have said that sometimes they like to let their soil dry out a bit. I'm wondering, is there an ideal midway point between constantly moist and I guess
Yeah,
I
it
don't know,
should
I mean, some
cycle
people-
a little bit, and that's the way I've always done it. You want it to dry out at least down the top inch of the soil if you're growing in dirt. Now, if you're growing in hydroponics, you don't want to let that happen.
Well,
but go ahead.
I think a lot of automated systems end up with a soil humidity sensor, right?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so do you? I mean, I guess do you?
Different
Any-
meters would be set differently, so I'd have to look at each individual meter to make a recommendation. But it is good to let it dry out, and so you don't get root rot. And there's it's its own little science. But
Well, because I know you wouldn't want to let it dry out too much or for too long because the finest of the root.
You don't
the
want it
root
to start
hairs-
wilting. So
Yeah.
you might bring it close to that point, but you wouldn't want it to start wilting. If it started wilting, it's gone.
So get to a
little
low
too dry.
humidity point, but not officially dry. Then.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want it to dry out completely.
Okay, that sounds about right. That sounds like exactly the question I had. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. In the field, the taproot will go down as deep as the plant
boy,
is
will
tall.
it. It will.
So it can dry out the top layer. And I've seen cannabis growing perfectly fine in China in 2 feet of standing water. It'll grow in a swampy condition. It'll grow in a desert-like condition. It
Really?
just grows from the mountaintops. It grows to the near Arctic conditions. It's just a widely adaptable plant.
That's the first time 2 feet of standing water I've ever heard that one. But
Oh,
I
yeah,
believe it.
I've seen it
I
grow
believe
like
it.
that in China on a number of occasions.
Wow.
In Shandong province, which is one of the ancient homes of hemp culture, and the Hong of Gongsa, also known in English as Confucius. We have another caller. Welcome to our show, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Howdy.
There you are.
Hi. I was. How you guys doing?
Good.
Big fan. Long time watcher. First time caller.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering if I know I can get myself a grower. If I were to do that, are there any legal issues that can keep somebody from being my grower?
Yeah, if someone's been, it changes state to state. And so I'm going to outline the system in Oregon. In Washington, as long as you aren't on probation or parole, you can be a medical marijuana grower for someone. In Oregon, as long as you don't have a conviction for selling drugs since January 1st, 2006, a felony conviction for selling or manufacturing illegal drugs since January 1st, 2006, then you can be a grower or patient in this state. And if you have had such a conviction, you can still be a patient, but you have to name someone else as your grower, and the patient who has a conviction for a felony for drug manufacturing or distribution since January 1st, 2006. They have that restriction for 5 years. And if you have a second conviction, then you can't be a grower for life under the medical marijuana program, and you have to name someone else as a grower for you. And you can have up to an ounce as a medical patient.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. So something like a DUI or something of that sort, that wouldn't.
Oh, that wouldn't affect it at all.
At all.
No, a DUI wouldn't have any negative effect on your ability to be a medical marijuana patient in any venue. Okay.
Wow, that's really good to hear. Thank you guys so much, and I love the Jack Hare piece. It was great.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
All right, thanks for watching.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Well, you know, we're winding up here, and Tim's already danced over to his guitar, ready to play some music out there. I just want to remind our viewers that if you or a loved one is looking for a doctor to help you get a medical marijuana permit, then you can call that number, 1-800-723-0188. We have dozens of doctors all across the United States who can help you get a medical marijuana permit. If you're here in the Portland area, you can call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. You can also call that number if you're interested in getting involved in our movement to end adult marijuana prohibition. So if you're interested in that, go to this website, hemp.org or crrh.org, or call us here in Portland at 503-235-4606. I want to thank you all for watching and tuning into another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We'll be back next week. We're going to go out on the wonderful instrumentation of Mr. Tim Pate. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Good night.